Hi, I'm Chap Bettis, author of The Disciple Making Parent, and this is my audio blog where I read some of my blog posts in audio format for your convenience. In today's episode, we're going to be thinking about the question, should I make my teen go to church? I've been asked this question 4 times in the past 4 months. Though there are variations, the basic question is, should I make my teenager go to church if he or she doesn't want to? One parent thinks of a 16-year-old son who says, I'm not a Christian and I don't enjoy church. Why do I have to go? Others were thinking of similar scenarios. One added the twist of having a 19 or 20-year-old still living at home and negatively influencing the younger siblings. The following are some wisdom principles that would lead me to conclude that in 98% of the cases, you should say, yes, you need to go to church. First, let's start with a clear theology of the teenage years. It's interesting that the only view we have of Jesus as a child is at 12 years old. In that interaction, Jesus displays independence from his parents, and yet Scripture records that he went home and he was submissive to his parents, and he kept growing. You can find that in Luke 2:42-52. Similarly, it's also interesting that the 20-year-olds were held accountable for not going up into Kadesh Barnea, but the 19-year-olds weren't. And that story, of course, is found in Numbers 14, verse 29. For me, as a parent, this helped establish some parameters of the 13 to 20 age as somehow different than a child, but not quite an adult. In our house, we identified an individual in this time period as an adult in training. We were giving our teens more independence, but he and she had not yet matured and was not yet on his own financially. Well, with this understanding, I come back to answer the original question. As long as your child is under the age of adulthood, then he is still your responsibility. There are plenty of good things that we, quote, make our young person do because it has benefits that they don't understand. We make them go to school or the doctor, even if he doesn't want to. The public gathering to hear the word preached certainly fits into that same category. So first, we need to have a clear theology of the teenage years. Second, this independence is also related to financial responsibility, not just age. Paul told the Thessalonians that if they did not work, they should not eat. You can find that in 2 Thessalonians 3, verse 10. In other words, the responsible action of work leads to benefits. The irresponsibility of not working leads to consequences. As long as an individual is enjoying significant financial benefits from me, then I have every right to expect compliance with some expectations. For example, after college, we had 2 of our children live with us for a year to help pay down some college debt. During that year, when my wife and I continued to subsidize their life by letting them live rent-free, they had to abide by a few rules of the house. And one of those was attending an evangelical church of their choosing. So to me, a second principle here is independence is also related to financial responsibility, not just age. But let me go on because I think there are a few more underlying truths that I think parents must be convinced of as we face this issue. One of those truths is that there are multiple benefits to public worship attendance. The biggest benefit is hearing the gospel sung and preached. But there's the additional benefit of meeting regularly with a wider network of people. Even if we ignore the vertical component, there are plenty of horizontal benefits to regular church attendance. Meeting together regularly with a community provides examples, counsel, and encouragement in life. Sociological research tells us that regular church attendance brings positive benefits. We are a social people. So I think as parents, we have to believe that there are multiple benefits to public worship attendance. In addition, we must be convinced that Christian parents think about the heart and the character. What do I mean by that? Well, obviously, in this scenario, our teen's heart is far from God. We want to ask gentle and probing questions to understand what he's thinking. In fact, communicating with us is also a condition of giving financial provision and living in our home. We may seek to sympathize with their concern. For example, maybe the 19-year-old might be saying, "There's no one my age." Well, then my response might be, "I understand. Let's find a healthy church for you that does have people your age." But at the end of the day, our lives are shaped by our actions as well as our heart. And though we cannot control the heart, we can have influence on our teenagers' actions. So we need to be convinced that as Christian parents, we need to think about the heart and the character. And finally, I want to get ahead of this issue when they're young. I hope that we've established such a good relationship with our teen and a commitment to our church that it's not even an issue. The groundwork that tempers this conflict is laid much earlier in the warmth of our family and its commitment to a local church. Having said that, I know that this might not be possible for parents who've come to Christ with older children or where one parent is a believer and the other isn't. Family life will always be messy. But if possible, I want to get ahead of this issue when they're young. Will there be exceptions? No doubt. But before you decide that your scenario fits into the 2% of exceptions, seek out godly wisdom from older saints. And if you're in this situation, my heart goes out to you. Obviously, you're facing difficult times in your relationship with your teen. But ultimately, I want my teen to know that I love them and I'm also responsible to God. I need to do what I think is best for them as long as they're under my roof. And if you'd like to hear how this played out in one person's life, just go to the Disciple Making Parent podcast, episode number 8. And in it, my associate pastor tells of his deliberate teenage rebellion and how his parents forced him to go to church. It led to his conversion. Thank you for listening to the Disciple Making Parent audio blog. Our ministry is to equip families to stand strong against the rising antagonism to the gospel. After all, what's more important to us than the souls of our children and grandchildren? But we can only do this because of people like you who support the ministry through monthly or special gifts. Would you prayerfully consider partnering with us? To do so, visit thedisciplemakingparent.com/donate. Thanks for listening.